The void of space was vast, indifferent, and merciless. Between the stars, civilizations rose and fell like shadows in the night, empires stretching across hundreds of systems, fleets numbering in the tens of thousands, their soldiers confident that nothing could match their might. Yet, there was one corner of the galaxy that no star map dared to touch, no fleet dared to enter. Humanity's space, the so-called dead zone, was untouched, unseen, and unknown to most. A place whispered about in fearful tones across the council halls of alien empires, a space where even the boldest species hesitated. It was said that the humans had vanished once. That their homeworld had been a backwater, weak, insignificant. But legend spoke of an awakening, of a wrath that no fleet could withstand, of a power so terrifying that even the mightiest rulers left human space untouched. And now, as the outer borders of their domain shimmered in starlight, the galaxy would finally understand why. The galaxy was vast, silent, and indifferent, yet it had always been alive with movement. Stars shimmered like cold embers in the infinite darkness, and between them, civilizations thrived, conquered, and fell with predictable regularity. Ships streaked across warp lanes, fleets clashed in distant systems, and ambassadors negotiated treaties that would hold for centuries, or unravel in moments. Yet there was one corner of the galaxy that even the boldest species avoided, a shadowed swath of space no map dared fully chart, a territory whispered about in fearful tones during council debates: human space. Its borders were marked not by stars or planets but by absence, absence of communication, absence of trade, absence of life as known to outsiders. No species had entered and returned intact. Some had vanished entirely, leaving nothing but lingering echoes of their existence. For decades, the outer empires dismissed the warnings. Humanity, they said, had once been a backwater, a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel. They had vanished centuries ago, victims of their own hubris or some cosmic calamity. Yet the stories persisted, buried in the dusty archives of the Galactic Council, fleets that had crossed an invisible line and never returned, worlds that had gone silent, and rumors of a force that struck swiftly, decisively, and without mercy. Then the anomalies began. It started with a ripple in the warp currents near the fringe of known human space. Navigation sensors on routine trade vessels flickered, their readings twisted and distorted. Communications were scrambled, even FTL messages failed to transmit. Captain Cyril of the Korvax freight line wrote it off initially as a system glitch, an error of equipment. But when 3 other ships reported the same disruptions, panic began to take root. The first fleet to investigate did not return. The Krillian mining convoy, 50 vessels laden with rare minerals, disappeared without a trace. Not a single distress signal, not a single shard of debris. Their systems went cold in the blink of an eye. Fleet commanders dispatched scout ships to investigate, but even they were met with impossible readings, immense energy pulses that defied every calculation, resonating across the void in waves that seemed almost alive. Sensors recorded the presence of a colossal mass moving beyond the edge of known physics, yet no ship or structure was visible. It was as if reality itself had been reshaped, folded, and then left to continue without them. The Galactic Council convened in the towering citadel orbiting Sorin Prime. Delegates from hundreds of species argued with frantic voices, scaling temperatures of fear they had never before encountered. Ambassador Varkon of the Orvian hegemony banged a clawed hand on the council table, scowling at every warning report. "You exaggerate. These are trivial disturbances, merely warp storms or system failures. Humans are extinct. Nothing remains." But the murmurs could not be ignored. Whispers traveled through the marble halls and hidden corridors of the council chamber, old records of humanity's wrath, sealed for centuries, now resurfacing. Entire fleets, thousands of ships, had vanished after violating the boundaries of human space. Worlds had been erased in days, their populations extinguished with surgical precision. Such accounts had once been dismissed as myth, stories meant to scare children or warn of arrogance. Now, they were warnings, undeniable and horrifying in their clarity. Admiral Thalen, a veteran of countless engagements against the Orvian hegemony's rivals, stared at his display screens, the scales of his face paling. His fleet had been deployed to monitor the border systems, to ensure no human remnants posed any threat. Yet the readings made him recoil. Energy signatures of incomprehensible scale, far beyond any known weaponry, pulsed at the edge of the sector. The void itself seemed to ripple, bending light and distorting spacetime around the anomalies. "Whatever they are," Thalen whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the bridge, "they don't fight like us. They erase. They obliterate. And we are nothing." Panic began to spread. Fleets of observation ships were scrambled across border systems, but hesitation dominated every command decision. No captain wished to cross the invisible line that humanity had drawn without firing a shot. Ships approached cautiously, scanning, measuring, waiting, and then reported the same thing. One by one, the fleets withdrew, communications clogged with static and erratic signals. Even the most experienced commanders could not deny the unnerving sensation: the humans were watching. They were waiting. And the galaxy's arrogance was about to be punished. In the outer corridors, traders and mercenaries whispered of ghost fleets that moved silently through human space. Oddly shaped vessels, impossible to categorize, glimmered just out of reach of sensors, retreating before they could be observed directly. Entire sectors went dark, communications severed without explanation. Each disappearance reinforced the legend of human power, not as a force to negotiate with, but as a predator, silent and inevitable. The council erupted in frantic debate. Chancellor Maris of the Veyron Collective slammed her gavel, silencing the chamber. "We cannot ignore this. The humans may be extinct, yes, but what we are witnessing is their legacy, their vengeance from beyond the grave. If we continue to send fleets into this void, we risk annihilation." Reports poured in faster than the council could process them. Pilots spoke of systems failing mid-flight, ships folding in on themselves as if reality had been manipulated. Communications officers described hearing strange voices, whispers in languages that should not exist, warning them to turn back. Analysts ran simulations repeatedly, only to find that no fleet, no weapon, no tactic could withstand the anomalies observed in human space. The first true terror arrived when a single scout vessel attempted to breach the boundary. Its final transmission was a stuttering sequence of images. The ship's sensors captured a vast energy field, a wall of shimmering light and shadow, moving with intent, almost alive. Crew reports spoke of hearing commands in their own voices, whispering orders to retreat, to surrender, to beg. And then, silence. The ship was gone. No wreckage, no debris, only a faint trace of energy that faded across the void like a dying star. By the end of the first cycle of warnings, the reality was undeniable. No species had entered human space willingly, and those who tried paid the ultimate price. Fear, once a distant concept reserved for myth, had become the most tangible presence in the galaxy. It seeped into council chambers, fleet operation centers, and even the quiet corners of starports where traders whispered tales of humans long thought extinct. And in the shadows of the galaxy, where darkness swallowed light and legends were born, humanity watched. They waited. Their silence, their absence, was a signal as powerful as any fleet, as loud as any war cry. The message was simple yet absolute: no species enters human space. No empire crosses that line. And those who ignore the warning will vanish. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy understood what it had forgotten. Humans were not just a species, they were a force beyond comprehension, and the terror of their wrath was real. The void held its breath. The stars themselves seemed to pause, waiting for the inevitable, waiting for a reckoning the galaxy had long tried to ignore. And somewhere in the darkness, the humans waited, silent, patient, and absolute in their power. The galaxy had learned caution, but caution could not prevent curiosity. Across the council chambers and starports of every major empire, whispers of the anomalies in human space evolved into rumors, and rumors into panic. Generals and admirals who once boasted of unmatched fleets now stared at their readings with hollow eyes, trembling before forces they could not understand. And then it happened. A single human ship emerged from the darkness at the edge of the sectors bordering human space. It was not a fleet. Not a battleship of 100 vessels. It was one, immense, angular, and silent, drifting through the void like a predator observing its prey. Even the most sophisticated sensors failed to gauge its scale. Its hull shimmered with an alloy that defied analysis, absorbing light, scattering radiation, and reflecting nothing recognizable. The engines emitted no conventional exhaust. Instead, space itself seemed to bend around it, faint ripples propagating across the void like the wake of a boat on a black sea. Every empire watching froze. Signals poured into the council chambers, overwhelming communications networks with readings beyond comprehension. Scientists recalculated their equations over and over, only to realize their instruments were inadequate. The energy output alone, measured in scales previously thought impossible, would have obliterated entire fleets in seconds. Yet the ship did not fire. It simply moved, deliberately, inexorably, toward the outer colonies. The council convened an emergency session. Delegates arrived from every corner of the galaxy, their faces pale and eyes wide. Chancellor Maris, still trembling from the first anomalies, slammed her gavel on the polished obsidian table, sending vibrations across the chamber. We cannot ignore this. Send a warning fleet. Dispatch every available vessel. We must assess the threat. Fleet admirals scrambled. Thousands of ships were mobilized, the deadliest weaponry in the galaxy ready to engage. The outer sectors became a staging ground for fleets that were meant to intimidate, to threaten, to protect. And then, with a calm that froze every commander in place, the humans made their first move. They did not attack. Instead, the ship slowed as it approached the borders of the outer colonies. It did not communicate, did not issue demands, did not fire a single weapon. Yet its presence alone caused entire fleets to falter. Shields fluctuated. Weapons misfired. Navigation arrays blinked with errors. Pilots reported strange phenomena, ghosts of systems that didn't exist, whispers in the frequency bands of their own voices, memories of lost friends or long-dead family appearing before their eyes. Fear, raw and pure, coursed through every officer, every crew member. Admiral Thalen of the Orvian hegemony, who had once prided himself on the discipline and efficiency of his fleet, sat frozen on the command bridge of his flagship. What is this?" he whispered. He had faced countless battles, led fleets against rivals far larger than his own, and yet this presence, was incomprehensible. He could feel it in his mind as much as his senses, a force so absolute that resistance seemed meaningless, a weight of inevitability pressing down on every thought. The humans transmitted a message. No words, no demands, only one signal that spanned every frequency the council could receive. It was a voice, calm, measured, unmistakably human, resonating in the minds of all who heard it, bypassing language, communication, and reason. No species enters human space. No empire crosses this line. We are the consequence of your arrogance. Silence followed. Fleets froze in place, communications jammed, and even the council chamber seemed to still as the message reverberated across the galaxy. The magnitude of what they faced became undeniable. It was not merely a warning. It was a display of dominance so complete, so absolute, that no species could rationalize defiance. Reports poured in from the frontiers. Colonists described massive objects hovering in orbit around their worlds, ships so large that they blocked out stars. Observers spoke of warships dissolving in a pulse of energy, leaving nothing behind but distorted space and a faint echo of their existence. Pilots abandoned training simulations, certain that their very minds were being manipulated, their deepest fears amplified into tangible reality. Entire fleets that had prepared to confront humanity turned back, some firing blindly at nothing, only to be torn apart by invisible forces. The council was paralyzed. Delegates argued, accused each other of cowardice, and tried desperately to strategize. But every plan failed. Every simulation crumbled. The humans had not fired a single weapon, yet the galaxy felt the sting of their power as if fleets had been annihilated instantly. The very thought of entering human space became unthinkable. In the outer sectors, fear transformed into hysteria. Trade networks collapsed. Fleets disbanded. Worlds once connected by commerce now vanished from maps, abandoned as if by collective decision. Pilots refused to fly. Scientists refused to analyze. Merchants refused to trade. Every species, from the smallest trader to the mightiest warlord, recognized one truth: humanity did not need fleets to dominate. Their presence was enough. Their warning was enough. And through it all, the human ship remained. Silent. Patient. Observant. Its systems gleamed faintly in the black, humming with power no sensors could quantify. No one knew if more ships waited behind it, if entire fleets of unimaginable size lurked in the darkness, or if this was a solitary harbinger of things to come. The uncertainty was worse than certainty. Admiral Thalen, shaken but not yet broken, finally addressed his fleet. His voice trembled, betraying a fear he had never admitted. "We are not prepared, we are not ready. Withdraw. Regroup. Do not provoke them." His orders were followed without hesitation. Fleets that had trained for years to engage in battle against the galaxy's most formidable enemies retreated in silence, shadows in the void, leaving the humans unchallenged. The first true reckoning had arrived. The galaxy had been arrogant, dismissive, confident in its own supremacy. Humanity had returned not with bluster or rhetoric, but with the quiet certainty of a force beyond comprehension. Their presence, alone, reshaped politics, military strategies, and the collective psyche of every species that dared to venture near human space. The Council, finally recognizing the futility of resistance, recorded a unanimous declaration: no fleets will enter human space. No species will challenge the boundary. Humanity is a force of consequence beyond reckoning. Even then, the humans did not celebrate. They did not announce themselves. They did not need to. The silence of their space, the absolute enforcement of its boundaries, spoke louder than any declaration. The galaxy understood: defiance was impossible. Curiosity was punished. Fear was now the ultimate authority. And in the darkness, somewhere far beyond the edge of known systems, humanity watched. They had waited patiently for centuries. They had endured isolation, obscurity, and the hubris of civilizations that underestimated them. Now, the galaxy had learned the lesson it had long ignored. The humans did not speak again. They did not fire a weapon. They simply existed, immovable, unknowable, and undeniable. And as every empire recalculated, reconsidered, and retreated, the truth became evident: the reckoning had only begun, and the galaxy would never forget it. The void itself seemed to tremble in their presence, and in that tremor, the fear of humanity crystallized. No species would dare enter human space again, not because of treaties, not because of diplomacy, but because they had finally recognized the absolute, terrifying power of a species that had transcended the very notion of war. And the humans waited, patient as the stars, for the next moment the galaxy dared to test them. The galaxy had trembled before, but it had never been silenced. Trade disputes, border skirmishes, and wars between empires had always produced noise: flaring signals, frantic transmissions, fleets clashing in spectacular displays of violence. Yet, in the days following humanity's deliberate appearance at the edge of their space, the galaxy fell into an unnatural quiet. Entire sectors bordering human space went dark. Communications went dead, colonies vanished from star charts, and trade routes ceased to exist. No ambassador dared report the truth to their council: the humans were not merely a threat, they were absolute. They were the culmination of every species' nightmares, distilled into a single, omnipresent reality. Reports trickled in, sporadic and terrified. Worlds that attempted to defend themselves found their defenses failing in ways that no scientist could explain. Energy shields melted without a touch. Weapon systems overloaded or simply refused to function. Pilots recounted visions of ships disintegrating mid-flight, as if unseen hands had plucked them from existence. Engineers described structures bending, warping, and collapsing under forces that could not be measured, as if the very laws of physics were being rewritten. The Council convened once more, this time on Zephyr 1, a neutral station orbiting the black sun of Trilon 9. Delegates arrived in silence, pale and trembling, their uniforms and robes reflecting a collective anxiety that had no precedent. Their faces, once full of ambition and pride, now betrayed the weight of realization: humanity's presence was not negotiable. It was absolute. Chancellor Maris, her hands shaking, addressed the assembly. We have underestimated them for centuries. We dismissed warnings as legend. We thought ourselves clever. And now we understand that what we called myth is reality. Humanity does not require fleets to dominate. Humanity does not need words to enforce obedience. Humanity exists, and that existence is sufficient. Outside the council chambers, fleets of the galaxy's most powerful species hovered at the borders of human space. Ships that once boasted firepower capable of leveling worlds now sat idle, powerless before the invisible barriers humanity had erected. Not a single commander dared cross the line. Each fleet was a monument to caution, a collection of metal and energy frozen in a state of awe and fear. The humans themselves did not speak. They did not fire. They did not move beyond the threshold. And yet, their influence radiated through every system, their presence reshaping the strategic calculus of the galaxy in ways that had never been possible. Intelligence reports noted patterns in empty space, objects moving without propulsion, distortions in sensor readings that hinted at unseen forces, and communication scrambling in ways that seemed almost deliberate. It was as though the humans had become the galaxy itself, omnipresent yet untouchable. In the outer colonies, citizens whispered of glimpses of human ships orbiting their worlds. Ships of unimaginable size, impossible geometry, their hulls glowing with faint, cold luminescence. Pilots reported hallucinations, nightmares of entire fleets vanishing as humans observed silently, measuring the weaknesses of their foes without engaging. The fear became contagious. Not even the bravest soldiers could maintain composure. Whole populations abandoned their colonies, fleeing deeper into the galaxy, leaving behind systems to the silence humanity claimed by right. Admiral Thalen, who had once led the Orvian hegemony's most formidable fleet, stood aboard his flagship in orbit above a recently abandoned colony. He stared at the readings on his display, numbers and signals that should have been impossible. His pride, his training, even his logic, all failed him. We cannot fight them, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Not with weapons. Not with fleets. Not with fleets and weapons combined. They exist beyond our capacity to challenge. Every species came to the same conclusion. Diplomats drafted edicts, treaties, and declarations, all acknowledging a single fact: human space is forbidden. No fleet, no species, no empire may enter. Humanity's borders are absolute, and defiance carries consequences beyond imagination. The declaration was unanimous, a first in the history of the Council, but it was born not of law or reason, but of raw, unfiltered fear. And the humans waited. Their fleets remained at the edges of their space, silent sentinels observing the galaxy's reaction. Ships glimmered like distant stars, massive in scale, their presence both reassuring and terrifying. It was a message without words: humanity was not seeking conquest. Humanity was not seeking war. Humanity was asserting a simple truth that no species could contest: their space was inviolate, and their power absolute. Over time, the effects rippled further. Trade routes reoriented, entire empires consolidated their fleets defensively, and colonies formerly near human space were evacuated, leaving ghost worlds as monuments to caution. Histories were rewritten to emphasize the threat, and children grew up hearing tales not of human weakness, but of human omnipotence. Even the bravest species began to teach caution as wisdom, respect as survival, and fear as the ultimate law. In hidden corners of the galaxy, rumors persisted of encounters with human reconnaissance ships. None attacked, none communicated, yet every encounter ended with fleets retreating or disappearing. Those who returned spoke of silent vessels that could traverse light years in moments, that manipulated spacetime to render themselves untouchable. Engineers swore they saw structures fold in impossible ways, while scientists calculated possibilities that only deepened their despair. The message became clear: humanity had transcended conventional warfare. They had become a force that could enforce peace or annihilation with equal ease, and the galaxy had no choice but to respect that supremacy. Fear had become law, and humanity's quiet vigilance ensured that it would endure for centuries. The Council's final acknowledgement, etched into every record and transmitted across star systems, was simple: no species enters human space. Humanity's will is absolute. Their presence is law. Their patience is eternal. And in the darkness beyond the edge of known systems, the humans watched. They had waited patiently for centuries, enduring obscurity, isolation, and the arrogance of civilizations that assumed they were extinct. Now, the galaxy understood the consequences of that arrogance. The humans did not celebrate. They did not fire weapons or make proclamations. They existed. Their fleets glimmered like cold monoliths, silent but overwhelmingly present, reminding the galaxy that fear itself could be a weapon. And as the Council disbanded, fleets withdrew, and colonies stabilized under the weight of caution, the galaxy learned the final lesson: to challenge humanity was not merely unwise, it was impossible. In that silence, in the calm of cosmic inevitability, the truth crystallized. Humanity had not sought vengeance. They had not sought glory. They had claimed what belonged to them: recognition, respect, and the undeniable fear that ensured their space would never again be violated. The stars themselves seemed to shimmer with their presence, a quiet warning etched into every corner of the galaxy. Every species, every fleet, every empire would remember. And the humans remained, patient, unwavering, and absolute in their command of a power that required no aggression, no rhetoric, and no justification beyond their mere existence. The galaxy had learned the lesson it could not afford to forget. And in that knowledge, humanity's legend became immutable: no species enters human space. And all who have tried, or even considered it, have understood the fear. The void was quiet once more, but it was not empty. It was full of watchful presence, a patience beyond measure, and the chilling certainty that humanity would endure as both guardian and terror of the stars. The lesson was final. The fear was real. The galaxy would never forget.